Hey guys, welcome to Pete's Ghias. In this multi-part video series, I'll be installing a new wiring harness into my Karmann Ghia. Part 1 covers the main harness from the motor to the fuse block. Check it out. I'm installing a brand new wiring harness from a company called Wiring Works. It fits 61 to 65. This harness is relatively simple compared to later Ghias, so it should be no problem for all you novices out there. However, this is a 12-volt conversion, and I'm also adding a tachometer, gauges, and extra wires for all that, and also a 2-speed wiper motor. So there will be some minor modifications along the way in this series of videos. I've got my fuse box, and I've got the wiring harness here. This is the complete new harness from Wiring Works, with the exception of the main harness, which is already in the car. So I'll go back and show you how that went in. You obviously don't need to pull the body off the pan, but the easiest way to do this is with the motor out and the tarboard removed. The main harness is fed from the rear to the front on the right upper side corner of the firewall. I've already slipped a grommet over the harness, which will protect the wires from getting cut on the metal edge of the firewall. The grommets are included in the kit. Okay, so the way that this works, this wiring harness crosses through here. There's some tabs here and here. 2 more grommets go into the firewall for the battery power wire and the wires to the starter solenoid. This long branch of the harness is attached to the lower part of the firewall with some tabs that simply fold over and hold it in place. All right, and here we go. Got the wiring harness in. So that's the main harness. This is the driver side blinker wires, passenger side blinker wires. This goes to the solenoid on the starter. Before replacing the tarboard, I have to feed the coil, generator, and oil pressure wires through a pre-cut hole, and the license plate wire through another hole at the top. Once the firewall is in place and the body lowered, I wire up the motor. That's it. So coming through the firewall is the main part of the engine harness. This is the wire for the alternator or generator, and inside this black tube right here are the coil wire and the oil pressure wire right here. This is number 30 wire to the alternator or generator, and this tube has 3 wires coming through it that I added to the car for accessory gauges, tachometer, oil pressure, and oil temperature gauges that I'm going to add to the car. And this wire dangling down here, I'll go over in a later video, this goes to the deck lid license plate light. This blue wire right here is the generator warning light. This attaches to the light on the back of the speedometer, and this plugs into number 61. That's the same for an alternator or generator. This is an alternator conversion, and because of that, the wire that came with the kit was just a little bit too short for this terminal. This is the B+ terminal, so I had to swap this wire out, make my own wire. This connects to B+. I had to put a ring terminal on here, and it attaches to the starter. So let's take a look underneath the car and see where this attaches. All right, so we're underneath the car looking at the starter, and the cable that I just mentioned, which attaches to B+ on the alternator or generator, connects to number 30 on the starter. So there are 2 terminals on the starter. There's a number 30 and a number 50. The number 30 is also connected to the positive side of the battery through that thick red cable, and there's also a red wire from the main harness which attaches to number 30, and that runs up front to the light switch. And then the red and black wire attaches to number 50 on the starter, and that also runs up through the main harness, but it connects to number 50 on the ignition switch. Next wire we're concerned with is the blue and green wire. This connects to the oil pressure light on the speedometer, and the other end connects to the sensor on the motor. And what threw me off at first was that this wire is a little short. It doesn't reach the sensor. You have to use this wire connector and a shorter section of like a jumper wire to connect to the sensor. And I believe they did it this way because this short piece of wire is considered a wear and tear item. It could get hot and get covered in oil, and eventually it wears out and breaks off. So rather than replace your whole harness or splice it, you just have to replace this short section of wire. This yellow wire goes to the tachometer, and this black and red wire are not in use yet, but I'm going to add a VDO oil pressure and oil temperature gauge to the car. But the wire we are concerned with right now is the black wire that goes to the coil that goes to the number 15 terminal on the coil, and the other end attaches to the choke on the carburetor. And there's a third wire that I had to add, and that goes to the fuel cutoff solenoid because this is not a stock carburetor for 65, so I had to add that wire for this to work. If I was putting the battery in the stock location, it would sit here in the right corner of the engine compartment. The positive wire would go through the firewall to the starter, and the ground cable would attach to the oil filler pedestal. Instead, I'm putting my battery under the back seat, and the reason is that to put a modern battery there, they're a different size, they're a different shape, and so I would have to trust that this hook and this bolt and the strap that goes over it would fit a newer battery perfectly, and it wouldn't shift and fall out of position. Because I have heard about Karmann Ghias catching fire when the battery comes loose and hits the motor, and rather than run that risk, I've just decided to put the battery under the back seat. Okay, so on a 65 and older Karmann Ghia, the path of the wiring harness is on the passenger side. It comes through the firewall behind the motor, goes over the wheel hump, comes into the quarter panel right here, and it goes into this tube right here. And then it goes through the rocker. There's a metal pipe in there. It comes out fender right here. So we're gonna pull that through right now. This pile of junk right here, this is all the debris that came out of the wiring conduit. And all this junk was stuck in there, and I got it out with this wire with a brush attached to it. There's a bigger brush on the other end. I got this brush on Amazon. So I ran that through there like 10 times, and I got all this debris out. And that literally came off of the old wiring harness. It just disintegrated inside the tube, so a lot of these wires are still good. I can always use this to patch something else. Okay, I can feed this wire through. I taped off the end of the wiring harness and then taped it to that flexible cleaning wire and brush. I feed that into the conduit in the quarter panel and gradually feed the wiring harness through the conduit to the front of the car. Oh, look at this. We have a wiring harness. I slide in the remainder of the harness. It's actually kind of long. And then I drag the rest out through the front. And then the wiring harness goes up the A-pillar, through that hole, and into the trunk. We're looking through the glove box opening into the trunk as I feed the wiring harness up through the A-pillar. The grommet is already on the wire. I'll just slip that into place once the wire is all the way through. Along the A-pillar, I've got my original grommet in place to seal the wiring harness, but since it's old and worn out, I'll probably seal it with some silicone or RTV. This grommet is not included with the Wiring Works kit, and as far as I know, this is no longer available anywhere. There's a couple of metal tabs inside the trunk. Bend them over the harness, and we're ready to start wiring behind the dash. Okay, the first thing I want to do is install my fuse block. Now keep in mind that there's a clip that goes right here to hold the fuse box in place. I'm missing that clip. I have one on order, but just know that it hooks in right there, and that secures the fuse box down so it doesn't fall out while you're driving. So one thing that's a little confusing about this wiring harness diagram is that they're showing you the fuse block from the perspective of being inside the car and looking up from underneath the dash. But when you're working here in the trunk, everything is reversed and backwards, so that gets to be a little confusing. I downloaded this off the Samba website, and it shows you the fuse block from the perspective of the trunk. So everything is the right way. So I'm going to use this as my reference. So I recommend you download this. If you have a 61 to 65 Karmann Ghia, you can find this on the Samba website very easily. So the first two lights I'm going to wire up are the parking lights, the rear right and the rear left. And those are red and white and black and white wires. And the funny thing about these wires is if you're looking at the Wiring Works instruction manual, they tell you to put them on the unfused side of the fuse box, but the diagram that I downloaded off the Samba website tells you to put these on the fused side of the fuse box. So that's what I think I'm gonna do. That seems like a safer option to me. So red and white goes here, and black and white goes right next to it. The other thing about these spade terminals is once they go on, they don't really want to come off. So if I have to take these off again, if I put them on from this perspective with the spade facing up like that, I can poke a nail or something through there to get them to pop off. But right now, they're on here and they're not coming off. Next wire I'm going to attach is the black wire to the coil. It's the number 15 wire. And from factory, that wire is unfused. It's not protected, and they've been known to burn up. And that creates a problem because then you've got to run a new wire from the front of the car to the back of the car. So to avoid that problem, I've decided to use an inline fuse. I bought this at a swap meet. This is an original inline fuse from a Beetle, and I've added this wire. So I'm gonna hook that up to the number 15 wire to add a little bit of extra protection. This is not in the wiring diagram, and this does not come with the Wiring Works wiring harness kit. Okay, so this wire is easily identified. It's just a black wire. It's the only black wire on this main harness kit. Hook that up, plug that into my inline fuse, and I'm gonna attach it to this terminal right here on the far right. So the simple thing about Volkswagen wiring harness is that everything is numbered. So if I look at this light switch here, there's a 56 terminal, 57, 56B, 58, and a 30 terminal. And that corresponds directly to the number 30 wire, which runs to the starter. And that is the thick black red wire, which I'm going to hook up right now. And I know this is my 30 wire because it's solid red. And the only other red wire under here on the main wiring harness is a red and black. So I'm gonna set this down here right now until I have my other wires installed. Put it into the dash later. All right, so this red and black wire right here, this is the number 50 wire that runs to the starter solenoid, and that goes to the number 50 terminal on the starter switch. Just gonna lay that down there, right there like that. So one important thing that does not come with the Wiring Works harness kit is the turn signal switch and the wires for that. You have to reuse your original, or you have to buy an aftermarket turn signal switch. So the signal that comes out for the left and right turn signals has to be split off into two for the front and the rear. So each side gets its own like a Y connector, and the power is going to split off to front and rear for both left and right. Okay, these black and white and black and green wires are kind of hard to spot, so I'm going to go through the speedometer here because these are pretty short. I'm going to plug these in from behind. The first one in. Okay, these wires actually didn't go all the way in, so I'm just gonna help them along with these needle nose pliers. Wires kinked a little bit, they're flexible. Push that down. So those are on, those are secure. All right, so next two wires, I've got a black and a white and a black and a green wire coming out of the wiring harness. These go to the rear turn signals. And obviously, just thinking logically, these correspond to the wires I just plugged in off of these adapters. So I'm gonna plug the black and white wire into the black and white adapter and the black and green wire into the black and green adapter. Okay, so I'm gonna put the ignition switch in here now. There's already a grommet in place here. All right, there we go. Okay, there we go, looking good. Vroom, vroom. Can't wait to start the car. The next thing to install are these speedometer rings. These things are kind of pricey, but necessary. You got to put this in the dash. If yours are in good condition, I'd recommend reusing them. But the main problem is that when you strip a car and take them apart, they have these little retaining tabs right here. And these are really, if you're not careful, they're real easy to break. If you're inexperienced, you've never done it before, they're real simple to break off. So if you're dismantling a car, I would just bend these tabs back very slowly and very carefully and not further than you have to. The more you work them, the more likely they are to fall off. But this is a brand new part, so I'm gonna install it now. Fits a Ghia 56 to 66. Okay, move the turn signal switch out of the way, and this goes straight in there like that. Stick that in. Okay, just make sure that this is perfectly centered at the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna fold this tab over like that. They make a very frightening cracking sound when you fold them over. I'm gonna put the next one in. Okay, I found this really nice rebuilt speedometer. I forget where I bought it. There's 2 hooks on the left and right side at 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And so what you want to do is put your screws into the back of the dash first, and then just set this in place and give it a twist. It's got new bulbs in it in the back. Those are 12-volt bulbs because the old bulbs were 6-volt. So this thing is looking nice, ready to go. And what I have here is a little gasket that goes around it. Hopefully this won't fall off while I'm putting this into the dash. This is a super tight area. The gasket might want to fall out, and you may have trouble getting those hooks behind the screws and washers. You might have to get someone to help you hold it in place or ease the screws out a little bit, but eventually it's going to go in. All right, let's take a look and see what this is all about. Wow. All right. Now it's starting to look like something. This is exciting. The tachometer is going in the exact same way a clock would. The only difference is behind the driver's side screw, I'm adding a ground tab because on a 65, there aren't any stock locations for the 12-volt relays and gauges I'm adding later, and I don't want to drill into the trunk. If your Ghia has already been butchered by the previous owner or has a bad paint job, feel free to drill away and add a ground tab anywhere you like, but no one is drilling this car. Not on my watch. The speedometer and tach are in place and looking good. This video is getting long, so we'll pick up in part 2 with the left headlight harness, which covers the brake lights, horn relay, and high beam switch. Become a subscriber so you don't miss out on a single video from Pete's Ghias, your #1 source for Karmann Ghia DIY and restoration on YouTube, according to me.